Welkom bij een nieuwe aflevering van Studio Data, hier vanaf de Big Data Expo, vanaf de stand van Go Data Driven. Want we hebben weer een andere interessante gast weten te strikken om met ons te praten over de ontwikkeling in het veld. And now I'm going to talk in English, because otherwise you can't follow it. Otherwise you speak English. Doron Reuter is Chief Product Owner, ING Wholesale Banking. Welcome to share your knowledge with us.
Thank you.
I said we have interesting people over here because it's an interesting field. We do a lot of these kind of things today. This is about payments. Is payments and data something different at other part with data? Is there something special about payments?
I wouldn't call it special in comparison to all data, but what you see is that payments is a high volume, fairly standardized banking product.
Yeah.
And that means that you're generating a lot of data points and you can use those data points.
How difficult is it in an enormous organization like ING first to start this up? Because now you already have had a long way behind, but how difficult was it to start it up, this whole process?
Well, I mean, you have to have the right context. So if you have leadership on board, if you connect to the strategy directly, and we do because ING wants to empower customers in life and in business by creating a differentiating customer experience. And you cannot create a differentiating customer experience if you don't use advanced analytics, because people are used to advanced analytics in their customer journeys elsewhere, whether they're using Google or Facebook or Instagram. So if you've got that right in the context, leadership, strategy, the right core team, and a couple of other prerequisites, then I wouldn't say it's easy, but it makes it possible.
It makes it possible. And what was more difficult, to start it internal, first in the organization, because first you have to build up everything, and later you made it external to your clients, but first the internal journey. Can you tell something about that?
Yes, so when you start with nothing, inside you have to create that context. You have to speak to leadership, you have to get leadership on board. You have to ensure that in some way you're contributing to the strategy. You have to ensure that you have a core team which can actually start doing stuff, because you want to demonstrate tangible output. And until you demonstrate tangible output, the rest will never come.
Okay.
Is it easier or more difficult to start inside or outside? I think it's always challenging. The challenges are slightly different.
But I can imagine inside you can convince each other to do it. Outside, it's your clients. They have to believe you. There has been a lot of trust. It's a different way.
That's true to some extent, but what's common to both is you want to run a design-led process. So you want to really keep the user in mind, whether you're trying to build a product for an internal user or an external user. Because if you don't solve the user problem first, you're never going to solve the business problem.
Okay. Now I start to becoming your client from ING Wholesale Banking, and I ask you, what is it helping me as a client? All kind of things you're developing with each other.
Well,
in what way it will help me?
Well, if you stick with the payments process, then I think that you can consider three different parts. There's the experience.
Yeah.
Our customers are people within corporates and institutions who need to execute payments. They get an app to do that. That's what I call the experience. Then you have the processes associated with that experience on the back end. You need to do different compliance checks. You need to check different parameters like balance. And you need to actually execute the operations associated with that payment. And the third thing is the data which spins out of that process. How can you create value for your customer using that? Now, across all three dimensions, you're basically developing products, analytical products, which add value to the customer's life. How? Well, in the experience, I don't think there's an app out there which, for instance, doesn't help you auto-complete forms, or, for instance, match an account name to an account number, or, for instance, allow you to predict what your cash balances will be. That's what I call in the experience analytical products. On the back end, like I said, you want to basically do your customer activity monitoring to basically check that a customer is behaving in the way that we'd like our customers to behave. You have to check balance, potentially credit. And then with the data spreading out of these processes, you can start to create additional value. And that we're trying to do too.
And do you have to convince your clients, or they immediately believe, or they are all enthusiastic? How does it work when the process starts, especially?
Well, it's never a push. What you're always trying to create is pull. So you're trying to understand the jobs that your customer needs to get done, what problems they're experiencing, and what potential opportunities they're not addressing because they don't have access to the right technology tools or data. And so you're always trying to empathize with your user, and on the back of that build products. So it's never a product push, it's always understanding, and on the back of that understanding, getting pull for what you want to do for your customer.
And is it becoming more and more less pushing, more pulling in a way people are accepting now? People get used to these kind of things. Do you feel that?
Definitely. So I think that we started out around 5 or 6 years ago within wholesale banking. And there you see that people had their doubts whether or not advanced analytics was something which should be ubiquitous within wholesale banking processes. 5 or 6 years later, I sense a tremendous shift in the way people think about the topic. There's an interest to get involved. There's a clear understanding as how you can use it specifically within the context. And what you see as a result, that the processes, the people, the resources are also starting to fall into place.
We're talking about a lot of aspects today on this table, and later on we talk especially about ethics and trust and words like that. But I think ethics and trust for a bank organization is even more important than maybe for other organizations. How you handle that kind of things, and the privacy problem and all these kind of questions?
Well, firstly, it's of paramount importance. So the rule of thumb is that when in doubt, don't do it. It's our license to operate. We have a trust position with our clients, and we will never do anything to compromise that. How does that work in practice? Well, firstly, around values and behaviors that are very much embedded into the minds and hearts of our colleagues via training, communication, and different types of exercises that we run with employees. 2, we have very clear policies which go beyond the letter of the law and also take ethics into consideration. And we have the mechanisms around those policies in order to discuss dilemmas and make sure that we do the right thing, always erring on the side of caution, because we will never compromise our core business and our trust relationship with our clients in order to create additional value. And the third thing is that we're employing technologies to help us with this task. So whether it's basically taking out specific data points which we don't want to use because we don't believe it's relevant to the process, and we don't think that it will have direct value to our customers, or whether it's checking other things that are related to the space, like, for instance, anonymization or encryption. We also trying to apply those technologies so that we have basically ensured that we don't use data in a way that we don't want to and our clients don't want us to.
Okay. How far you are with the data journey now? When some people ask you, where are you now?
Well, I mean, it's always difficult to answer a relative question like that, because far in terms of what or in terms of who. What I will say is we've made a lot of progress since starting out 5 years ago. We've basically communicated to the ING organization and to groups of clients that this is a relevant space, relevant disruptive technology that we should be using to build valuable propositions towards our clients. We've managed to set up a sizable capability. At the moment, we've got 104 people within wholesale banking, which are developing software products with embedded machine intelligence, which yield insights of value in different core processes within the bank, as well as a number of different products which we are trying to bring outside the bank. We have good data analytics platform, which we're now starting to democratize within the organizations, so more people have access to data and can do analytics. And that's where we are now. Is that far or not? I think I'll let other people be the judge, but we definitely have progressed a lot since since starting 5 years ago.
We also asked some people walking around here how far the data journey is on this moment. We will look at their reactions. Look over there.
De datatrend is over zo'n hoogtepunt heen. Nou, dat denk ik niet. Ik denk eigenlijk dat we net pas begonnen zijn.
Ik denk niet dat het onmogelijk is. Met de juiste mensen in je organisatie kun je zeer zeker je organisatie zo opzetten dat die volledig data gedreven is. Ik denk, wil je dat een stuk sneller doen of een bestaande organisatie eigenlijk omvormen naar een data gedreven organisatie, dan gaat dat natuurlijk een stuk beter op het moment dat je daar externe expertise voor kunt inhuren.
Nee, er is nog heel weinig data beschikbaar nu. En ik denk dat zodra er meer data beschikbaar is, er ook meer inzichten gaan komen.
It's logical because we are here in a surrounding of all believers of data. They all say, well, we're just somewhere around. But I think everybody will understand data will become more and more important. And still people outside are sometimes a little bit anxious about the whole process going on. Is it a task for all people to visualize more and better what it means really for people? Because for some people it's a kind of a technical, mysterious way.
It's difficult to generically answer these types of questions because in my experience, any doubt around data is always related to a specific product.
Okay.
And you cannot solve the issue generically. You've got to solve the issue for the user or for the potential segment you're addressing with that specific product. And that's a question of building in the controls that I've discussed. It's a question of communication. And it's a question of how you shape the product, not to be intrusive. What I do think, if I see where people's mindset is going to a more general statement, is I think you're right. People start to understand that they cannot experience as a user what they'd like to without use of data and without the use of analytics. And with that recognition, I think the hurdle starts to drop.
Okay.
I think obviously people that are younger embrace this more intuitively. And as the new generations evolve, I think you'll see a very different attitude to the use of personal data, to the use of products in ways that we might feel less comfortable with.
What is your biggest challenge now as an organization? What's your next goal, and what makes it maybe difficult?
Well, we've set a very high ambition level because we want to be a data-driven organization where analytics is very much core to our business model. Now, that is a huge change. And so we're working very hard to educate people, both on the business and the technology side, with skills that we think are highly relevant. So, example, we're educating what we call business or analytical translators on the business side, who have a huge amount of domain knowledge, but still don't have the skills to translate that knowledge into concrete analytical exercises, as well as educating people on the technology and on the data science side so that they can be world class. And this process is ongoing. We also have obviously dedicated funding to this type of innovation, and we're trying to apply that funding to address the biggest problems of the bank. And what you see is that there's a lot of initiatives in a variety of different areas around the bank, both within the wholesale bank, but also in other areas, which are showing demonstrable results.
Okay. My last question is, you're working in a big international organization. We call it the World Wide Web, so it must be equal all over the world. Is it still a difference between some countries or some parts of the world with all these kind of processes? Or do you try to do it on every place, on every moment?
Well, if you look at ING in general, we're working towards a lot of standardization on the technology side and on the business side. obviously there are different flavors in the different countries. There's different laws, there's different regulations, there's different markets that you address, and so you still see that there is some patchiness.
But the standard you're working with is equal all over the world.
We definitely try to standardize where possible. From an analytics perspective, I think what you see is that we definitely are standardizing and democratizing across the globe in a similar way, or at least trying to, but there's still some nuance in the exact problems you're trying to address in the country's legislation and regulation related to data use, and that makes it obvious. That makes it logical to say do different things in different countries.
Okay. You're optimistic about the future, about your own job? It's still growing on?
I'm optimistic either way, and I enjoy my job very much, and I think that we've got a lot of ground to cover, and I think we can really create a lot of value for our customers using this technology.
Okay. I will thank you very much for sharing your knowledge with us, and wishing you good luck personally and with your company.
Thank you very much.
Doron Reuter, thank you very much. En daarmee komen we aan het einde van deze aflevering van Studio Data. Dus voor deze houden we ermee op, maar vergeet ook niet naar de andere te kijken. Dank.